Welcome in to the Carbonite Chronicles, presented by the Hyperspace Podcasting. In the 25th century, this show is dedicated in celebrating the Favroni universe?
Yeah. Filoni-verse.
Filoni-verse? Favroni-verse? I don't know. But the
That
Book of
sounds like
Boba
something
Fett,
you buy
guys.
and eat.
we're wrapping up the Book of Boba Fett and another round of Carbonite Chronicles. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
I'm Mike.
And we've got back the collector himself,
Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me back.
Brian
Bring
saw
me
us,
out of carbon freeze.
He saw us into this, and he's seeing us out of this.
And we've got Mike back from the Sarlacc, his adventures in the Sarlacc.
He looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah. Did the Sarlacc bath agree with you, Mike?
It's the Sarlacc enzymes is very great. Exfoliator.
I see.
I guess
Awesome.
it's still active. It's still dripping in there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's still, there's a lot of moisture in there. It's very moist.
So, guys, concluded the Book of Boba Fett, whether it's a standalone or a season one. And I have to warn everybody, if you're watching this and you haven't seen the show yet, we're going to be spoiling everything. You got it ready?
I think so. I've got it queued up.
Pretty good tech for Star Wars there.
Ah, crap. I didn't even know I had Carrie Fisher singing the Life Day song on cassette. Let me...
There you go.
There it is. That's it. Gosh.
I mean,
What the heck?
so guys,
Wow.
the Book of Boba Fett was a heck of a ride. I'm not sure where it took me, but it was an interesting ride nonetheless. But you want to just talk about this recent episode, then we'll just give our thoughts on the whole series, or
Yeah, I think we should.
all right? Why don't you, Jared? Why don't you kick us off?
Well, this final episode, I think it gave me everything that I wanted out of this show, while also amplifying my problems with it.
That's an excellent way of putting it.
Nobody can watch this show and see Boba Fett astride a Rancor and not love that. If you don't, then you have serious problems.
Yeah, there's something really wrong with you if you can't get on board with Fett riding a Rancor.
That's
and
true.
Destroying a city.
It's pretty
However,
amazing.
something also popped into my head as I was watching it, saying, "Why didn't he just get Slave One and kill everybody?"
That's the first thing I thought.
That
Okay,
I was like, "Is Slave One in the shop? What's going on here?"
So
So we had to see that. So
well, since you
you
brought
know.
that part up, do you think that they kind of hedged that kind of worry by saying how energy weapons aren't penetrating the shields, and maybe he wasn't confident that Slave One's blasters would have penetrated those shields, so he wouldn't take the chance. He just decided to get a beast and
Well, it's
walk
possible.
it from the
the time compression here is something.
I mean,
to-
I get the jetpack. I'm even assuming the jetpack can propel him, extremely fast
Sure.
to the palace. But to walk that beast back must have been,
yeah.
First off,
Well,
get down there.
maybe he was galloping, and then when he got to the city, he slowed it way
he had
down.
to get there. He had to hit the garage door opener. He had to go in. He had to use the bathroom. He had to find the Rancor chains, chain him up, get on the Rancor, and then walk him out.
Maybe radioed ahead to have him ready for him.
I thought that Slave One, he was going to be somehow towing the Rancor and drop him in the middle of the city with Slave One, and then wreck.
That would have been cool.
But no, we got Boba Fett astride, which was fine. I loved it, and we got to see what a Rancor loose can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, and it looked way better than a puppet. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Mike finally got his realistic rampaging Rancor that he dreamed about since 1983.
About the black matte lines surrounding him.
Yeah.
Yes, the big, thick, black matte lines. They even got the drool right. the very viscous, thick drool, which
Mhm.
I enjoyed. But overall, the final episode, like I said, there's so much stuff that I loved about it, but it amplified some issues that I was hoping that the last episode would kind of tie up for me, and I don't think it quite they quite landed the plane.
I agree. Even carrying over from the previous episode, we all kind of had questions saying, "Well, is Luke just testing Grogu about like attachments in the Jedi way? Is this?" It, but it looks like he wasn't quite testing. It looks like he just sent him on
No,
his
he
way.
threw him in an Uber and told him to get the F out of here. So that's something I thought was like, Luke, how responsible are you being by doing this? I mean, R2 is obviously the most capable astromech droid in the galaxy. So, but still, could Luke have not just made the trip and said, no, okay, R2, take him to the most dangerous city on Tatooine. There's some shady lady there. I think he knows. He'll be fine. That was that. Of course, when I saw the X-wing and everything, I was like, "Oh, here we go." But then I thought about it later. If you'd had Luke Skywalker present at these events, it would have been a very fast fight, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Speaking of the fight, so one of my problems I've had with the show so far is that I felt that the Boba Fett story with Mos Espa and the crime, syndicate that he's a part of now, leading, I should say, has felt very small to me. Like Jabba, I felt that Jabba was in control of something massive, that his tentacles stretched far and wide, and he was a feared person for a good reason. And there was a lot of power and a lot of wealth and a lot of prestige that came with Jabba. And I don't see really any of that, left over in this. And I felt that everything has felt small, and even the fight at the end, I felt like it was like a bunch of like kids fighting kids, in like a neighborhood versus like an all-out syndicate war. But
I think that, with Bib Fortuna, you know, taking over for Jabba, there was probably a vacuum there for a while. And, a lot of, everything got divided up like they've kind
Yeah.
of described. And,
Yeah, they sort of
it-
addressed that in the show.
right. And, it just kind of shrunk it down to something, frankly, probably more manageable for a rookie crime boss. But
and I know, and you're right, they did kind of like play that up and set that up, but it still felt small. It still felt like for someone who's claiming, the title of Jabba's former throne or Bib Fortuna's, it just felt like a little tiny story. And not that Boba has to be involved in a bigger scope, but the Boba part of this whole show felt small. Interesting, but small. Now that on the flip side, what they gave us with the Mandalorian felt huge and connected to the bigger Star Wars universe. And, I can't wait for the next season of the Mandalorian. So, I mean,
we've seen about half of it, haven't we?
yeah,
It seems we have.
I mean,
You could literally watch. I mean, if you're watching the Boba Fett show, you could almost skip episodes 5 and 6 and go straight
Yeah.
from him standing on the balcony to the final episode, and you really wouldn't miss a beat. I mean, you of course there's some details there with Grogu and the Mandalorian, but for the most part, it would be almost a seamless
it's true.
transition. And what I wanted from the finale was some sort of I don't know, something to connect it all and not just have it be such a extreme detour for no reason. And the finale was their chance to say, "Oh, well, we had to do that because of this." And I don't think they did. And it's I don't know, I'm talking too much. Somebody else take it from here.
I see what you're saying. Now, we had some really excellent elements in this whole series, though. I mean, the fact that we got to see a live action Cad Bane was amazing. I thought he was a bit, I thought it was a bit one dimensional, but that's okay. I was disappointed that they didn't make it canon. officially that he put the dent in Boba's helmet. I wanted him to say, I'm gonna, I'm gonna give you another dent to match the one I gave you before, just to make that real. But I liked Cad Bane. I saw there's an interesting internet theory going on right now that when Cad Bane is stabbed at the end, there's a light on his chest that starts to blink that was never blinking. And
no, I think he's not. I don't think he's dead.
Yeah. So, I mean, they gave pretty good hints that there might be a season 2 or at least something connecting this show to another one. I hope they do. And I'm not complaining about this show at all because I thought what they showed me was great. And like all the Mos Espa stuff and all like opening up like Tatooine even further for me to look at, I thought was phenomenal. And
I'll say one more negative thing because I enjoy peeing at everybody's Cheerios, but they never made me understand why Boba wanted to do this. Why? I mean, it's one thing to show him at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian go and murder Bib Fortuna, and sit down on the throne. I mean, that makes for a cool looking wallpaper on your computer. But going further than that, I don't think it ever explained to me why he wanted to become this benevolent ruler who gets handed fruit in the streets. Like and children are coming up and petting his armor, and I don't. And even he says at the end of the show, I don't know if I like this or not. Like, what are you doing? Why have we done this?
It's a great point.
They never explained it. And like I said, they had a chance. Like I was into all the Tusken stuff and the rebuilding of his character and the rebirth of his character after he came out of the Sarlacc. But it seemed arbitrary completely. Hey, I want to kind of be a police officer, but not really. Like I want to be this, but I want to be a criminal. No, don't get me wrong, but I want to be a nice guy who's really like a policeman.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And it just has been really aggravating me. But that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have him a little more heavy-handed, for sure, in the series. And it's funny too. You go back and you think about like collecting muscle, and Boba Fett, big name, muscle, Mandalorian, muscle, Chrysanthemum, muscle, and then you got the mod people,
Griff Tannen's gang,
yeah, yeah, and then no one else.
I know.
I mean, so where are all these people? I mean, yeah, you got
Oh, don't forget the Gamorreans, R.I.P.
But but it's like we have all the muscle we need, and there was no thought of like these guys betraying them in their agreement, from the other crime bosses.
Yeah,
I would have been like, these guys are not going to cooperate.
And it seemed like Boba was just outsmarted at every turn or betrayed. Yeah. And he's always like, whoa, what happened here?
Well, make no mistake, there was only one person that was doing the thinking, and that was Fennec.
Yeah, she always had everyone's number.
Yeah,
true.
She might have come out looking the best in this. Honestly,
ultimately, she's the one who finished the job on the big bad at the end, or the big bads.
Yeah,
but
and her hanging the mayor.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was glorious.
That was pretty awesome.
I mean, I never thought I'd have seen that.
But hey, Mike, we haven't heard much from you, so tell us what's your take on all this?
Well, I like the episode. I thought the Ranker stuff was cool, but I think overall, the series is disjointed. I think I thought Tamora Morrison was great, but there was a sense of almost he was naive. I think a great scene that kind of exemplifies what you were talking about is when the droid shows up in the front of him, and he's like, "Oh, I thought you said this was, no one would get past us." And this like robot apparently just waltzed up.
Talking about 8D8.
Yeah, and also it felt like I felt like I was seeing the end of season 1 of The Mandalorian with the siege.
A little bit, yeah.
And I didn't understand what was the real benefit of doing it there instead of going to the palace, because obviously the palace would have been a better place, and they would have taken the fight away from the village. Because I mean,
I
you see
thought
all
the same thing.
see
I
all the
can't leave these
damage.
people. They're only after you.
No, yeah,
Well-
they're not trying to kill everybody in the town.
Remember,
Yeah.
they took advice from those mods who don't. I mean, are they living their best lives? I mean, are they making great life choices by modifying themselves and all this? So I don't know. I think you took advice from the wrong person.
I think why didn't they bring the droids out sooner? I mean, unless they were just like really slow and it took them longer to get there.
Mhm.
So I think you kind of just have to, which is almost typical of Star Wars, you have to kind of overlook the logic leaps they take, and you just have to make the decision on whether you're going to enjoy it or not.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
you know, what they gave us in the season 2 Mandalorian with Boba was, I think, a false setup, because his character in the Mandalorian seemed much more focused, ruthless, and capable. And there's a lot of instances in this new series where the Boba we saw in the last few episodes of the Mandalorian did not appear in this series. And even at this last episode, we saw some pretty good stuff from him, some pretty good moves. But what we saw in the Mandalorian when he got his armor back was a superhero. That's how good he was. And I never felt that I got that Boba back in this series. I got a hint and a glint of him now and then, but I never got that Boba back.
Yeah, we got the closest in this episode, I think.
Yeah. But
Because
that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see that Boba in this universe. And maybe I would have respected him more. Maybe people would have not questioned him more if he had been that kind of, ruthless, focused, talented killer that he was.
Yeah.
But
And
he acted with honor. He still acted with honor, but he was still ruthless.
That was one of my favorite parts of the episode was the scenes with him and Mando flying around and fighting together.
Mhm.
That's classic. I mean, that's one of the things when I say this finale gave me everything I wanted. That's one of those things, is scenes like that. I mean, that was brilliant. And it's funny that the bad guys only get accurate when they're shooting at Beskar.
Yeah.
Because Boba and Mando were getting lit up pretty good.
Yeah, they were.
And but that, you're right. That's I think the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett is in season 2 of The Mandalorian. And unbelievably, Robert Rodriguez directed that episode in The Mandalorian. And it was fantastic. All 3 of his episodes have been my least favorite of this show.
I agree.
And I don't think Robert Rodriguez walks on water or anything. I liked his earlier stuff, but I never got into when he turned into the Spy Kids filmmaker exclusively for like 10 years of his life. But I like him in that, he's a student of George Lucas. I mean, he says that in many interviews, and he opened his own studio and he does everything himself. And I like that about him. He's a very independent filmmaker, but I don't know if he's a good fit for Star Wars. There's just something about his episodes that feel off to me. Whereas Dave Filoni in episode 6, that was, as Matt says, pure mainline DNA Star Wars all the way through that.
Just nailed it.
Yeah. And with this episode, some really impressive action, great action. But something's off. I tell you what, those mod speeders too.
Yeah.
They move strange. I think they're actually on wheels. Like, it looks like they're actually on wheels and they just digitally erased the wheels, because the way they move is just slow and stupid.
Yeah, it's pretty wonky.
Especially when
Yeah.
you have them in the same episode with actual speeder bikes that move like speeder bikes should. It's I don't know. I could
about those mod bikes. When I first saw them, I thought, oh, those are kind of cool. But when you do see them in action, they do seem off.
they're very stiff.
Yeah,
that's why
I don't really
think
have something about them.
they just don't move right. I don't know.
No.
They feel like they're on the ground. They're not hovering above it. And I think that's the problem. But whatever. With some bright spots for me in this episode. I loved Boba's message that he sent the Twi'lek out with on the tablet. And that guy was like, and plus, I mean, I just like that guy. He's like, you may have noticed my accent. Yes, I did study on Coruscant.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
He was a bright spot in that show for me, to be sure.
Yeah. He's such, I don't know, he's kind of, that has a little bit of douchiness to him or something.
Oh yeah, lots of douchiness.
I think he's great. I think he's very well cast. I think he's very funny.
Just seeing him out there, and he realizes that he's just out there with his pants down when he's reading through that note.
It was quite an extensive note he read, by the way, for Boba doing like this for 2 seconds.
Well,
yeah,
that didn't really bother me.
But no,
come on,
was
man.
Funny.
Suspension of disbelief.
It was funny. You were talking about the mods, little speeder bikes, the Vespas, whatever they were. One of my favorite parts of the show, and I don't know why it made me laugh so much, but when the Rancor was loose, tearing up Mos Espa, when he emerged with that speeder in his hand, and he's just kind of like hanging onto it for no reason, I thought that was very funny. I liked seeing him just like he's climbing, he's almost like a toy. He's playing with the speeder, and then he throws it. It was very cool.
That's obviously King Kong. I mean, they're riffing on King Kong
right
at the top of the building, but that all the stuff with the Rancor,
yeah, it's great.
I can't fault aside from story purposes. I can't. I could watch that stuff on loop all day long.
Oh yeah, it was amazing.
I will tell you guys one thing I was surprised about. I mean, I swore we were going to see it. I could have I would have put a safe bet down that the Hutts would have been coming back in this episode for some reason.
Yeah, I thought about that.
And maybe if we get a season 2, maybe the Hutts will come back. But I swore that we were going to see them because we found out, of course, the Pikes were the ones that framed the Tusken slaughter, and I would just assume that the Pikes and the Hutts are in cohorts, but didn't happen. We didn't see the Hutts again. They Hutts of their word.
Yeah. And that's something that we didn't get that I thought we would, was the puppet master behind the scenes.
Right.
Some larger entity that was pulling strings, and we didn't get that. And it did turn out to just be the Pike Syndicate doing this thing. And like Matt said, it felt kind of small and inconsequential. Like if we talked, think about bringing in Crimson Dawn or Black Sun or some larger criminal entity, but it didn't happen.
And it doesn't, we don't have to have a show that has that big of a scope. But the thing is, Boba Fett himself is like, he's kind of like the ward of the Empire. He's not a random person. He is an important vestige of the birth of the Empire. He's one of the last remaining pieces of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want him connected more. I want him to be more important in the greater scope of things. This, like I said, it felt that they took his character and they threw him off in this nowhere world and made him, to your point, like the benevolent ruler of a dust town. That's what he wanted to do. That was his big, not to get off world, not to clean up, but, take over Jabba's palace and go walk around Mos Espa with his helmet off. It just didn't seem that important for a character whom has an important legacy and heritage in the Empire and Star Wars. And we never saw Omega. We never, that big setup with the Bad Batch never paid off.
Of course, that show is still ongoing, so we don't know Omega's fate. She may not be alive at this time.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Mike, what were you going to say?
Well, I'm just say, I wonder if these episodes will play better, like when you go back and rewatch without the, like if you know what's coming, if there'll be,
Well,
you after you absorb it, and after you see the next season or whatever, if they'll play a little bit better. That's why I'm hesitant to say I didn't. I mean, I liked it, but I think it feels like we're watching something that's still unfolding, and it's really hard to just be like, well, why didn't they do this or why didn't they do that? Why did Luke just throw Grogu in an X-wing? The thing that bothered me about that is it's like you have this big emotional scene at the end of the season 2, and they kind of just undid it. Like, oh,
yeah,
never mind.
Like, and that's a great point.
And I don't know if that's because I guess my concern here is that, okay, I'm a little worn out on Grogu the baby. I would like to see him mature, maybe start talking, because I think 3 seasons of this is enough. I think it's time to move forward.
That's a good point. I agree with you.
A friend of mine had a good idea. Now, nothing even close to this happened, but he thought that maybe Luke could have thrown Grogu a bone and, say maybe he picked the lightsaber and he sends Han and Chewie to go help Mando out. And then, of course, think of all the crazy things that would happen then when Boba sees Han Solo, the guy that knocked him into the pit, and all that. That would have been a really interesting thought. And up until a few days before, apparently, Harrison Ford was listed on the Book of Boba Fett on IMDb.
Well, IMDb can be edited by anybody.
It can. I think they're a little sticklers about some of that stuff, though.
But I think
me and Jared are on IMDb.
Yeah, we are for our appearance as the drunk neighbor and somebody else
behind the scenes.
Yeah. I thought I saw the rumors about the Harrison Ford thing, and I thought, well, it's a possibility, but I was also wondering, how often are they just going to trot this out? Like every finale, we're going to get some de-aged character from the original trilogy, or we're going to get C-3PO or Chewbacca,
right,
or somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, look, the Luke stuff in Episode 6, I really enjoyed. I really liked it. I like seeing him, but I don't know how many times you can go to the well with that kind of thing. And if, of course, if the Falcon had shown up with Han and Chewie, I would have lost my mind. But, I think, I just don't think they're going to be doing that like every season finale or more often. Maybe once a season we'll get a glimpse of something like that. But I don't think, I don't know how much it costs to make Harrison Ford look like he's 40 years old. But it's getting cheaper and cheaper by the day, I'm sure. But and pretty soon, if you want to do that, you don't even need, like, Mark Hamill wasn't on the set for Episode 6. He did spend time with the actor who portrayed him, and they spent some time together going through the motions. And Luke, and I think Hamill was on the set, but he wasn't. He was never photographed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
not like he was for the second season of Mandalorian.
Well, I think I mean, I'm assuming that since he sent Grogu back in the X-Wing, that we've seen what we were going to see of Luke. I mean, I would be shocked if Luke appears in the Mandalorian again. He may dip into Ahsoka, perhaps. I'm not sure if they're going to go back to that, but we might have seen the last of Luke Skywalker. And if that's the case, I think we've seen some pretty good Luke scenes. I think we were given some pretty great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, you don't want to keep going back to that well. I read an interesting article that was saying that Star Wars has a Luke problem right now.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah. So, and I don't think the article was wrong. And I think if they go away from it and let what they made stand and just live on in its canon, I think they'll be very proud of the, keeping it to what they have. If they overdo it, it's going to run thin. But that said, I hope they incorporate more of different characters. It'd be great to see that. Not necessarily de-aging stuff. Maybe just give me Chewbacca. You don't have to de-age Chewbacca.
No,
I don't need to
you
see
don't.
Han, but I can see Chewbacca. There's good
Well-
touch points that you can always give me that don't have to, make me really stretch my disbelief,
Sure. I'd like to go back to what Mike said about effectively undoing the finale of season 2 of Mandalorian. It does seem, again, the schizophrenic nature of this show. It's just another element. Okay.
Like it doesn't know what
Hey,
it wants
look
to do.
who's here.
Yeah, it's
You
like
almost need like a clap track going on.
it,
in
it
the
would be
background.
like, having, of course, I thought it was cute having Grogu and Mando reunited, and but to have it in the middle of this chase, and and like it was like, oh crap, oh well, this is it. This was the big build from last week and what people have been talking about for a year, and it's like it would be like if I don't know if Sam from Cheers went onto the Frasier set and had some big, and had some big thing happen on Frasier
Instead of on his show.
instead of on Cheers, and that goes back to what Mike said to me last week. It's like, then just call it Star Wars. If everybody's playing in the same sandbox and swimming in the same pool, then just call it Star Wars. Then and we'll just bounce around to all these people.
It feels like that's where they're heading.
It does,
really.
But they have to figure it out in a way that's not so disjointed and crazy.
Yeah.
Where you're stopping one program in the 4th episode and then going into a totally different show in the 5th episode, and then trying to tie it all back haphazardly in the 7th episode.
If you look at those 2 episodes, 5 and 6, I mean, it looks like they took the first 2 episodes of Mando season 3 and said, we need something extra here, or we need to bring in Mando, and we're going to use that because we've got it. I mean, that's kind of how it feels. And then you get literally in those 2 episodes, you get about 3 minutes of Boba Fett time, not just his face, but I mean like the show.
Yeah.
Something from the show.
Yeah. It was really jarring. And again, it's just, I liked it. I like it. I do like it. It just seems a bit messy.
I think this show, unlike The Mandalorian, where look, not every episode of The Mandalorian was a home run, but I think the story in the series so far has been a home run for The Mandalorian. I think for this, this was, it definitely didn't, I don't think it held up to The Mandalorian storytelling, but it gave me things that I really will love from Star Wars. And this is a good series where I get to pick and choose what I like. I'm just adding in to my brain all these great things that I got to see that, as a kid, I never thought I was going to get to see any of this stuff. I got to see a Rancor just tear up Mos Espa. I got to see Mos Espa. I got to see like all of Mos Espa and see all the amazing where the space freighters land, the starport. I got to see the city. I got to explore a lot of Tatooine in the show. I got to see the Tuskens. I got to learn, there's a lot of good stuff I can take from this show. Was the story told, in the best way? I don't know. It's a little hard to follow. To your point, it's a schizophrenic show. It definitely wasn't my favorite show to watch, but the things I get to take from it, I think is just amazing. And that's what all this, I think, is about, is that, Favreau and Filoni and Bryce Dallas Howard, all these people that they're being put into the Star Wars universe right now are creating amazing things. It might not be my favorite piece of Star Wars, but I tell you what, I'd watch the Book of Boba Fett 10 times in a row, start to finish, before I go back and watch The Last Jedi again. So, I mean,
100%.
So I mean,
And
this is great Star Wars. Whether or not it's completely, congruent and watchable in that sense, where like this is the best thing I've ever seen, maybe not, but it's good Star Wars.
Yeah.
well, Mike is good at like talking me off a ledge, and you did, Mike, a few minutes ago when you said, this story is still playing out, and we don't know yet. And that's another problem. That's the difference between watching a movie for 2 hours and living with the show for 2 months on a weekly basis. You're always like, well, what's next? And we said early in the Carbonite Chronicles that it felt like Boba Fett was this movie that they were just pausing and coming back to a week later, not necessarily very episodic. And I think if you watch it, and which I know Brian did recently, just watched it all in one shot, that, you don't have these week-long breaks to theorize and discuss and be like, well, it's got to be Crimson Dawn, or Han and Chewie are definitely showing up. And I know those twin Hutts are coming back. If you watch it in a compressed space, and of course, talking about it and having your theories, for me, that's part of the fun. But when a story is presented in a chunk, like a 2.5 hour chunk, your brain is not looking for these other things. You're accepting at face value what's in front of you. And I think if this was a movie with the Pikes as the main threat, if this was presented in one shot, I would have accepted the Pikes with no problem. But because I had 2 months to think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, Prince Caesar is going to show up, and Kira is going to show up, and all these people are going to come, and Chewbacca will be here, and I think that's the difference.
Here's another thing: if it was a movie, we wouldn't have had 2 hours without Boba Fett. That would have been cut throughout the Boba Fett story.
Yes,
Yeah.
That would not have been the Mandalorian would not have been in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he would have been in it in the last episode where he comes in to help. But
what I'm saying is, it would have been the Mandalorian stuff should have been cut as early as like the 3rd episode. Should have been in scenes,
yes,
instead of just dedicating an entire episode. But they I guess they wanted that moment where they're like, we're going to need some help, and then play the theme,
mm-hmm.
and then leads into it's like they wanted that moment,
mm-hmm.
and it just was unnecessary.
Well,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go
ahead. No, go ahead, Brian.
Well, like Jared said, on Sunday I sat down and watched the 6 chapters that were out right in a row. I mean, sat down with a friend of mine and we just plowed through them. And of course, they were speculating on chapter 7, right? But it does play a lot better if you watch it straight through. Although it is kind of odd to have that change from 4 to 5, because you completely change gears, but it does play a much better if you watch it straight through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think going away from Boba Fett did a bit of a disservice, because there were things I think that, we never saw Boba train the Rancor. He talks to it in episode 2 or 3, and then we don't see it again until the end of the show. And he's riding it skillfully. And they didn't build, they didn't really build much of a relationship between the two of them. I mean, they took the blinders off, and the Rancor looked at him and he petted it. And then that was all we got until the last episode. And I think there are a lot of cases like that where we left Boba for 2 whole hours, and I think we might have that was a missed opportunity.
I agree.
In some cases.
I agree. And this is the first time we've had Boba, on screen since he was a kid in the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they kind of showed you scenes where Jango Fett was taking off in Slave One, I would have liked a little more like introspective moments with Boba, thinking about his past, or, I didn't feel like, he was in the back of the tank. He's having these like dreams of the Slave One taking off. I never felt any kind of like that emotional connection to it. I just didn't get it. I would have liked maybe one part of an episode where he's talking to Fennec and getting some stuff off his chest, or just talking about Django Fett a little bit, but didn't get much of Django.
No,
This is the only chance I think we're going to get it, unless we have another season.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
it would have built him up a little more of a character, like what's the motivation here? What's he thinking?
He's really only mentioned by Cad Bane when he's like, you got your father's blood in your veins.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
There's that thought.
No, to me, to Jared's point earlier about why he was doing it. I mean, to be honest, it seemed to me it was just like his retirement. Like he's retiring from bounty hunting, so I'm just going to do this.
I think that's the point. I think that's what he was supposed to be doing. I think he hinted at that he it's time that he can't do this forever, be a bounty hunter. But Jared's right too. It did feel a little thin. I mean, I would have been happy if I had like a Bib Fortuna connection. Like we kind of theorized that, well, maybe when he crawled out of the Sarlacc, Bib Fortuna, found him and he betrayed him at some point, or who knows. But there was no personal connection why we saw such venom for him to walk up and blast him and so like ruthlessly throw him out of that chair. Like, I mean, and we even kind of got that set up, like Bib Fortuna at the end of that, end credits was like, so happy you're alive, Boba, which is a great scene. And so I'm like, well, there's something between these two. There's a history here, which made him want to go and do this. And to Jared, so we never got it. We never got the answer.
Well, we haven't got it yet.
Not yet.
It feels like there should have probably been like a 30 or 45-minute build-up episode after cutting away to the Mandalorian for a little bit. Put in an episode that's 30, 45 minutes long. Get some of these behind the scenes, build up things, maybe build up your army a little bit more too in that. And then you have that last episode where it just, blows the doors off. I'll tell you what, watching it a second time, it played super fast. I mean, like the first time watching it was fast. It almost rushed in a sense. Cause I mean, it's just like, from one thing to another, just to, fight. But, when you watch it again, it's even faster.
Well, one thing I thought about,
good in a way.
Sure. But at what point do they just stop shooting into the bubble shield?
Yeah, right.
Because my goodness, all of them were just like, oh crap, they've got shields. Our guns are useless. And okay, so we're going to spend 10 more minutes shooting the bubble shields.
Yeah.
But, again, Star Wars, I give it a pass. And those droids, by the way, were designed for episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And actually are in one of the art books, but they were never used. But hey.
So how many times have any of us played video games and have done the same thing?
Well,
whether shooting into a shield or trying to climb a wall or do what.
And there was some evidence. There was some evidence that it was weakening the shield. Like it would get, you saw the shield changing colors, and Chrysanthemum tries to put his hand through it. He took some punishment. I thought he was going to bite the dust.
I really thought he was dead.
I think he was a good character all around.
I'd like
every
to
scene
see
with
more.
Chrysanthemum I liked.
Yeah. And, he had an axe in his back and he kept getting shot. And I was like, good grief, man.
Like a cleave mark on his forehead.
I know. And then just comes, throws some dead aliens down on the ground.
Thank God the skinny little mods helped him up. And,
that one mod should have died for doing the spin move. I mean, my son called him out. He goes, well, that was unnecessary. We're like, what? He goes, the spin move. And I was like, yep, you're right. It was.
I've already seen memes now of the spin move. And it's like, when I watched it, I was like, that is stupid. Why did they do that? But, I was wanting more. I saw a lot of mods got killed, which was good. But I was hoping, that would be a wipe them clean. And then, look, okay, so let's talk about the underwhelming mid-credit sequence where Cobb Vanth is sleeping in the back of the tank, and then Thundercat decides he's going to turn him into a cyborg. I was like, what?
Okay. So I went back and I watched the whole Cad Bane, scene with him again. I watched it a few times. He clearly gets tagged in the shoulder.
Yes, he
Yeah.
does.
So, I mean, he's in the shoulder. So I don't know what the big deal is. I don't know.
Well, here's the problem
If
with
he got an
that.
infection.
They said he was the town said he was dead, so they thought
Right.
he was dead. So how did he get to the back
Who
to
took
tank?
him? Who took him to the back to tank? I think those people. I think the town folk. Well, that doesn't make sense because the town folk, his weak way friend, thought he was dead. He's like, they killed him in cold blood.
That's one of those like disjointed
I thought
logic
he
leaps
said-
I was talking about.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
look, you can suspend your disbelief and say that after the fight, the Mandalorian went back to that town to see what had happened. And
yeah, but what was his body doing the whole time?
hanging out with an infection.
But they thought he was dead.
Maybe he's getting a bruise.
Yeah,
But they thought he was dead. I mean,
I-
they would have like covered him up or something like that.
Maybe they buried him.
and he
Yeah.
Cobb Vanth comes out of the sand. Yeah, but I'm
Left for
thinking,
dead on the sands of Tatooine.
do you really need a robot arm if you get shot in the shoulder? And is this being done with Cobb Vanth's permission? Because that guy he looked pretty shady. He held up his little laser scalpel and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna cut on Cobb."
It's a good point because as much as I like Cobb Vanth, I thought he was a neat character, and well cast. I didn't really care that much about him. I wasn't attached to him, and if he, instead of hitting the shoulder, if he'd just been killed, I probably been okay with it.
Well,
so,
stuff like that too. It diminishes like Cad Bane.
yeah.
Because Cad Bane's gonna know if he killed him or not.
So
Yeah, Bane was more interested in killing that other guy.
But he even said he was dead. Bane was like, "Yeah, I killed him."
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know. I mean, I think it was a pretty lackluster mid-credit scene. I would have been nice to see Kira maybe flying in on a Sith interceptor or something like that, or even just that little beep on Cad Bane's thing, pinging some faraway planet,
And
where
then
we see
maybe
something blinking.
you come back to where he was laying and he's not there anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I would have gone in that direction because I just don't care that much about Cobb Vanth, but whatever. That's just me.
Well, I hope I like him. I like that
Well,
actor.
I mean, I'm
So
glad to see him. He's gonna be around again, obviously in some robotic
Yeah.
cybernetic form. So that's fine. I'll take him. But it wasn't necessary for me. And it
Yeah,
certainly didn't leave me as a cliffhanger for a season 2. But that said, I am selfishly going to say I hope we get a season 2 because I'd love to see the further adventures of Boba Fett and Fennec Shand.
Well,
There's
it's-
potential there for a lot of
sure.
stuff.
And maybe this is either because Jon Favreau is the sole writer on this show except for Filoni on episode 6.
Mhm.
And I expect a little more from Johnny, to be
For sure.
honest. Not that it's and part of me thinks that okay, well, the way this season was by design. And he's got a good idea of what's coming up next. He sees the picture that we don't. So maybe and going back to Mike, the voice of reason, maybe we don't have the whole picture yet and we're only seeing part of it. And I choose to believe that that's what's going on here. Or, Jon Favreau, I'm sure he's hearing the criticisms because there's plenty of criticisms about this show out there and how it does not favorably compare to The Mandalorian. And maybe he looks at some of that feedback and says, okay, well, maybe next time we'll do it this way or we'll change this. So, that the history of that show is still being written. So I think at the end of the season, I like it. I'm not disowning it. I'm not tying myself in knots to try to make myself like it because I do like it.
Well, think about it this way. It's better than anything we got in the sequel trilogy.
100%. I mean, and some of the stuff, and that's what I think. Like I'm looking at stuff that's meaningful to me as a Star Wars fan.
Mhm.
It's the aliens, the hardware, the iconography. It's like Matt says, it's the sweet spot.
Well, at least we
And-
didn't get Dengar.
Oh, man, that would have been great. I mean,
Some weird marriage.
he's trying to get married and he's looking for Boba. I want Mike to be an extra in that scene. If that scene is ever filmed, somehow we're going to get Mike on the set just so he can see it with his own eyes.
Well, you'll
Because-
see back in the back like this.
The eyes are rolling hard.
Well, if nothing else, though, Boba Fett is back. He's alive. He survived the Empire, and he's in the post Imperial universe now. So
Yeah.
it's like they brought him back. It's
And-
cool and it's fun, and it might not have been perfect, but it's great. It's
And-
still great.
Until the end of my life, I can pull up YouTube and watch Boba Fett ride a Rancor through the streets of Mos Espa and tear apart droids with the Rancor's bare hands.
Yep.
And that's that means something. That's important. And I said if I see Boba Fett riding a Rancor, that will be make it worth the annual Disney Plus subscription fee. So mission accomplished, Disney Plus.
Perfect. Well, I think that wraps up this round of Carbonite Chronicles. It's been it's been a good ride.
It has been. And I'm sure that we'll be back with Carbonite Chronicles once the Mandalorian and Grogu, wherever they get to wherever they're going in their N1 Starfighter,
It's true.
which that's how it's very fitting. That's how the show ended, because, obviously that's where we're going next is with him.
Well, we'll pause for a second. Much like how in the middle of the Book of Boba Fett, there was a complete, right-hand turn to take a little Mandalorian detour. Maybe the Carbonite Chronicles will take a little detour from the bounty hunting world and do a special one-off review of the Obi-Wan series coming up.
Hey, well, I'm sure we'll be talking about it. I don't
Well,
know what
if we-
that has to
if-
do with
are we-
Carbonite.
Are we Tashi Station or are we Carbonite with that one?
We'll have to talk about it. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that was just announced. Comes
Because
out
if we
May
make another Star Wars sideshow, then we're just going to be as bad as the Book of Boba Fett at that point.
Oh, this is a sideshow. Don't kid yourself. Yeah, the Obi-Wan launches May 25th, the 45th anniversary of A New Hope, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So we just had and I believe people are saying a Super Bowl trailer is possible for Obi-Wan. So
I think
we'll see.
that's a good time for a teaser. So,
Yeah.
it is.
And Mike, I thought of you when I heard the end credits where they started chanting Boba Fett.
they?
Boba." Did you not catch that?
No, I didn't watch past the mid-credit scene.
Well, when they did the artwork,
They were saying Boba Fett.
no.
Yeah.
Well, but before, they just start the music with with the vocal. But then in this particular version, they said Fett, and then they went Boba Fett.
I gotta listen to that. I gotta rewatch it.
And so Mike, some of our listeners may know that Mike has a love relationship with the end credits of RoboCop 2, where they just chant RoboCop, RoboCop.
It's one of the worst scores in the history of film scores.
So yeah, I might just put that end credits on the end of this episode. Fact. Yeah, it didn't work for me. I like the original version better. So, but anyway,
It was a nice change up.
I don't know about nice. It was a change up.
It was a change up for sure. My wife got a kick out of it.
Brian, thanks for joining the show as always.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
We can't wait to have you back and talk more Star Wars as Jared gets his focus back.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not going to happen.
He's
So,
way out
It's
of
just like the
focus.
Book of Boba Fett. It's out of focus, and
I've got my face
You just gotta trust
obscured. I don't
Thanks for
want Disney
listening.
to.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We've got more Star Wars, of course, to come always on this channel, as well as our podcast, which now is dropping again every Monday. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Spread the word, spread the news. And the Carbonite Chronicles and the Hyperspace will be back.
The Sarlacc is closed.
The camera's closed.
It totally is, man. What the heck is this?
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us here next time as we take you into the 25th century.